Okay, thank you all for coming this evening. It is Thursday, January 16th, 2025. Happy New Year to those who I haven't seen since the end of last year. This is the joint meeting of the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee and the Halliwell Review Committee. We're calling to order at 6:36. First item on the agenda is roll call. Mrs. Tebow, would you like to start with your group?
We're all set.
Okay, for roll call.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting of the Multi-Generational Committee to order. Roll call, please. We no longer have a secretary, so I'll call the roll. Julian Paulitz. Muriel Halliwell. Here. And Josh. Sylvia. Here. And Kim will be a little bit late. And I'm Linda Tebow, and we're all here.
All right, very good. Thank you. And then for our side, Mr. Nigerian. Here. Ms. Chartier. Here. Mr. Savini.
Here.
And the chair is here. Our first item of business this evening is public comment. Mrs. Lilly, you have the stand.
Thank you. Oh, it's too dull.
For
Hi, I'm Ann Lilly, Forestdale, Maple Avenue. I came in tonight specifically, I know you're trying to work out a new group to work on the multi-generational center, its building, and I come as a representative of the Parks and Rec Commission. We feel strongly as a commission that there should be some representation from our commission on the group that will be working on the multi-generational center. And the reason being is we spend a lot of time looking at programs and recreational programs that serve all ages in our town, and we think that our input would be helpful in adding to what features might be great for the building, with the eye of what is going to happen to that building once it's finished, because we've looked at the empty Halliwell school buildings, and until a building is got people in it that are doing things, it's just an empty building. And I know we all have hopes and dreams for what that building can do for us as far as activities and programs. And at some point, the building will morph into programs and activities. And at some point, it may be a Parks and Rec responsibility to handle some of that. I'm not sure how that will break out. And as we look at the development of the property itself, as far as trails, playgrounds, whatever, those will probably fall under the jurisdiction of Parks and Rec. So I would strongly consider having a member of the Parks and Rec Commission be part of the final group that's put together. Not that we expect to be bossy or run the show or anything, but we do think we could bring a lot to the table as to how this develops and add to what we hope will be a very rich experience for all of our town. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know about your group, but this is the most audience that we've had at some of our meetings, so this is great. Anybody else? All right then. Okay. All right, with that then, we move on to, for discussion, consideration, and action, review of the draft resolution as presented to us by Council President Kim Alves. For those of you at home watching on YouTube, Council President Alves is not present quite yet, but the town clerk did circulate a draft resolution to the members of both boards here. So I know there's been talk of resolution since, October, November. There might have been a couple iterations with Councilor Ogier, who was working with us on the Halliwell Review Committee. I know he had done some work on it. And I believe the latest iteration that was presented or sent along to us was authored by President Alves and the Solicitor Igliozzi. So the purpose of our meeting tonight, from what President Alves had requested of us, was to review and comment on said resolution. So I'll just open it up to the floor, and if there's anybody that wants to speak up on the resolution, you can go right ahead.
We don't have a paper copy of that, we just have it in our phones.
Do you want the paper copy? Because in the two things that I gave you,
Yeah,
This
but
is
I
the-
think we're supposed to be,
this was what was emailed to us.
that's the one that was emailed to us?
Yeah, I have it in another format if you want this one.
Okay.
So that's the one that was
I
emailed.
was trying to
That's the one that was marked up.
Okay, that's the one that was marked up. Okay, sorry, my mistake.
Easier if you just not have the draft right across it?
Yeah, I like it plain, but no, that's okay. That'll do, yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chair, are we looking at only the one that's stamped draft, or both of them?
I would like to start with the one that we received via email, because President Alves is not here to explain this one that's titled Halliwell Multi-Generational Building Committee. So I'd like her to speak to that.
Yeah,
So if in the interim, we speak on the one that was emailed to us, then we can have that discussion, and then when she gets here, she can explain the adjustments that were made in the highlighted copy.
that's where I was going, yeah.
Mhm.
That's where I was going with that, yeah.
Okay. So then I will open it up to both groups. If there's any comments that we want to start identifying for the one that was emailed to us, then we can go right ahead. Go through
Well, I
it.
think, Mr. Chair, I think I mentioned it to you, just the last note before the beginning of Section 2. It indicates that the committee shall meet not less frequently than once a month. Should probably, if we're going to create such a document, you should probably put a caveat that says, if there's no pressing reason to meet, we would notify the committee would notify the council as to a delay in that meeting schedule. There would be no sense to meet just for the sake of meeting.
Right. Because it does state we supposed to let the council, report to the council once a month, so. I was interested in Section 1 with membership. I think 9 people is too many. I think 9 members is too many. Just my opinion.
Of that 9 members, it's showing 5 voting members, which are residents, and then 1 member of the town council,
Right.
and then 3 professional staff members.
Yeah, it would seem that the
From the-
intent is that
yeah.
the 5 members would be the viable working members, and the others are just there
And the only voting member.
to keep harmony and
Yeah,
cohesiveness
yeah.
with the town.
Yeah, well, because when I saw that too, I thought not only a member from the council, perhaps somebody from the admin team should be on board as well, like the finance director and maybe 3.
But that would be a
Those 3 would
professional
be
staff.
those, you think?
Those would be part of the professional
Those are the 3
staff.
professional? Okay, all right.
So if I'm reading this correctly, we have 8 members,
Oh, see, that's
5
not in
voting
here.
members. And if I read that correctly, 1 of those 5 will be a member of the town council. So you'd have 4 members for the public at large and 1 member of the town council. And then we'd have, very similar to how our committee is structured, where you have professional staff members on board for an advisory role.
Okay. See, I'm glad I looked at that one because I was still looking on the phone and that said 9, so 8 is better. Okay, that works.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You are right, the one that was.
Yeah, the original one, that's the one I was looking at.
Yeah.
The original, that's the one I've been looking at right along. Oh, so I think that's better.
Kim, we're diving into the, just so I know, give you a minute to catch up. We're diving into the,
The draft.
right now, we're diving into the first draft, which was emailed to us. It appears we have 3 drafts. We have the one that was emailed to us, we have the one that was just handed to us pre-markup, and then we have the one post-markup.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I like the 8 better. section 1, the draft. I like this section. Does it name the 3 professionals, or
Does not.
does admin decide?
I think the three
Oh,
administrative
I see the
people
director of
will be,
public works, the town planner.
the administrator will be naming those 3.
Okay, all right. I see it now, yep. Good idea, okay.
So I'm going to disagree on the number. The Halliwell Review Committee has had 9 members, and it was expected that we had 9 members, one of being the town council liaison, but we cast a wide net for representation. The representation can range all the way from the youngest group in our town that this community center would be serving, all the way up to the oldest. So I know in the past, our group had good representation that brought forward, from seniors to families to young professionals, really starting out. So I'm okay with having 9 members. You can go back and watch some of the videos, but nobody was unruly. We didn't have a hard time getting a handle on things, and it just allowed more input and folks to feel empowered when they came to our meetings. It gave us the opportunity to have a wider array of opinions, and it brought a lot more to the table, and I think we had quite a bit of tremendous success putting together the master plan. Having said that, I also agree that we need some more professional staff from the administration, and I would also agree that when I was looking at the multi-generational advisory resolution and the Halliwell Review Committee resolution, I was thinking that it was going to be almost a merger of the two, carrying the same language, or similar language rather, and then having 9 voting members, 1 being a town council liaison, and then 2 or 3 ex officio members, such as the DPW, planning department, and the administration, whoever the administrators saw fit. It looks like in this revised resolution, we're looking at the building official. But I think with a building committee that's servicing so much of the community, we need to have, I believe we need to have more of that representation. When we have 5 people, to me, it feels limiting. So that's why I think just having the 9 brings more to the table for us, and we have more productive discussion, we have a more successful outcome.
That's just 1 more though, Jeff, right? Went from 8 to 9?
No, that would be 9 members of the community.
Oh, yeah,
And
I
then-
think that's too many.
So,
Sometimes when you have too many on the committee, nothing gets done.
so I need to,
You could say the same about a committee of 5.
so we need to,
like
I believe we need to, before we decide on a recommended number, similar to how the multi-generational facility was formatted, we had identified in that resolution the groups of people that would be involved
Yep.
in decision-making. And I think we need to evaluate a similar structure with this resolution to come up with that number. 2 members of the senior, just for example, 2 members of the senior advisory committee. I don't think scouts need to be involved in this one, only because Scouters Hall is remaining for now. But having different groups, making sure that they're involved in this, and then going from there, 2 at-large members, 2 senior advisory committee members, and identifying the different groups that would be involved.
I think that's where Parks and Rec would come in, because you serve everybody. Parks and Rec, yeah. Yeah. Usually the emphasis is on the kids, but I know you do serve everyone.
I think some thought has to be applied to the 5, because 3 of the 5 are part of the executive. So that, under this plan, that only leaves 2 non-executive members. I tend to agree with the chair. There's a significant amount of work that needs to be done. And we have to be aware of the fact that as many people who may want to participate, they all come from various backgrounds. So their skill sets may or may not match the workload that needs to be done. So it's a lot of pressure to be put on just 5. Knowing full well that for the most part, because if I'm reading this correctly, the 5 members are the only voting members. So the strength of having administrative and other committees is to keep the link open and to have communication. But again, it falls on 5, 3 of which are going to be part of the executive. I think it might be reasonable to entertain the idea of trying to make that a 7, to give us a little bit, because we've also gone through quite a few members that have come through the ranks and gone out the door. What we thought was a vibrant, well-rounded, and engaging group slowly whittled down as we progressed. And this is a long haul. It's not a few quick meetings with minor agenda items. So I think the 7 might be a nice compromise.
I sort of agree. I think the whole point about having rotating, if people drop out, if you only have 5, and you remember one of those 5 is a town council member, so you really only have 4, right? And so those 4, if you have 2 leave and now you're trying to bring 2 more up to date without, and only have 2 plus the council member be really advised on every step of the way through the process. If you have, if you have 7 and you have 2, you have to bring in 2 new, at least you still have 5 that have been there, and you have, they understand everything that you've gone up to at this date, and there's not a whole lot of backfill. So I think.
And the follow-up to that is that no one can expect a council member, whomever that is, to take the same burden as sitting members, because
Correct.
they would have their own burden of
Mhm.
doing their job. So they're only, that's why when you put it together, you shouldn't necessarily consider them a full working member, because they probably won't have all that extra time.
Yeah, they're more of a liaison to the town council, I would think, even though they are a true voting member. I'm not trying to downplay.
Yeah,
that role.
I remember when we built the middle school, and our liaison, Ed Yazbek at the time, was a very full working member of that committee. He really was.
So let's not reinvent the wheel. How many people are on that committee?
I don't remember. Not 9. I don't know of a committee that we've had 9.
I don't recall that committee. But the police building committee had 5
Yep.
for a much larger project than this.
Yeah.
I think
But
what we have.
Ray, the police station, though, is only representative of the police. It doesn't require full community input. This is a very different building typology that requires a bit more.
So Jeff, I think as an advisory committee, that's correct. This is a building committee. I think you've already got all your answers and all your information on what an advisory committee is. We did our due diligence as an advisory committee, as you did. This is now a building committee. And in speaking with the administrator and the planner on this, the town administration needs more input in this. We don't necessarily have to be a voting member,
Right.
but we need more input. When we're
I
talking,
don't disagree with that.
when we're talking the amount of money that we're talking about, I don't think the discussions are going to be about where you're putting a tennis court or how many bathrooms. This is a building committee that's got to spend the money, come up with additional money if we're going to go with the original plans. So that was kind of the discussion that we had this morning about this. 9, way too many. When you have other major projects that only have 5 members, and I would think whoever the liaison is for the council would be very involved in this. Just my opinions.
Thank you.
I would respectfully disagree, because I think you saw what the building committee did for the police, and I think, yeah, it was a lot more money, but they presented a very large option, and this is a smaller project, but I think having more involvement than just the police interest, now you can open it up to, I had made notes before seeing the draft that if we had 9 members total as voting members, where you have approximately 6 by the town council, you have 1 by the town administrator, you have a town council member. That's when you start pulling in members of the senior community, members of the Parks and Recreation community. You don't necessarily have to note them as far as setting aside specific seats, but you're pulling together a wide array of interests that are going to use this. Furthermore, I almost think that this committee should look beyond the building and should look at the property as a whole, because what goes on in that building and that building built is going to be the hub of everything going outward. So I would also like to see that this committee not just be a building committee, but maybe be a Halliwell development committee where they can work in conjunction with not only building the building, but there's money for trails and the other development that will go on that can be done simultaneously. So I would prefer to see more members on here than just 5. I will say, to play devil's advocate, looking up other building committees around Massachusetts, those are standing committees and are generally just 5 members. But we don't have to follow that. We can make our own path, and I think having more members will benefit and will represent the community a lot better. Particularly, this is going to be used by multiple members of the community.
I think there's a happy medium between the points being made. I agree with Ray in one respect, and I can see, however, we all have to realize, I think, that 9 people, if it were 9 from the original, trying to get 9 people to consistently feel inclusive and agree and reach a decision is an arduous task, because you've got a variety of opinions, and in all due respect, you clearly will have people that have greater working knowledge of the subject matter than others. They may feel left out, they may feel stepped upon because they don't feel as literate as the people who do understand it. So you may create more of an issue by ostracizing indirectly without intent people who feel like they don't really belong. And it is Herculean sometimes to get 9 people to be of one mind. So maybe it's 5 as proposed, maybe it's 6 if we reach a compromise, but you need an odd number for the most part. Generally speaking, you want to do that.
Well, maybe 9 is not it. Maybe 8 or 7 is it. But we have 9. We're supposed to have 9 seats on us, and now we have 4 people. You have 7 on yours, and you have 5 people. So if you make a slightly bigger group, I think 5 is just too small to get the work done that needs to be done. Now, maybe it doesn't have to be 9, but more than 5, I think, is what it should be.
Mr. Ogier. No, you're good. You had authored some original resolutions that got circulated around, so certainly,
So,
I would like some background information.
So my name's Douglas Ogier. I agree that I think there should be more voices, but maybe it doesn't need to be a voting member. Maybe, no, I haven't heard the word alternate yet, and I know being involved in a lot of committees, a lot of times it is hard to get a quorum, and so having an alternate would still allow people to participate, and then in the event somebody can't come, the discussion doesn't have to get derailed. They're still able to maybe help influence the discussion that's going on and the vote that ultimately proceeds. At the end of the day, it's ultimately going to be the council that decides, and Solicitor Igliozzi has set precedent where you can have an even number. We did so with the groundwater committee just due to the advisory nature. So alternates might be a way to go as well if you want to increase it, maybe have 3 alternates. Doesn't impact the voting members. But
Thank you.
I still think 5 is quite enough. I've been on many committees in my day, and it's a lot of committees. And I think if you have more than 5, it does become a little dicey when you're trying to get a vote. Either way. And I would agree that perhaps amongst that tight group of 5 should be people, the architects, and that know about buildings and such, and that's very important information. But representation from people like Ann Lilly from Parks and Rec, she represents many generations. I don't have to put myself on, but you know, the senior population needs to be represented, and it has not been represented for many, many years, except thanks to the Scouters Hall. We've been very fortunate, and it's been very successful there. So perhaps if it were 5, which included included or not included the town council member, then maybe you look at, does that person vote or not? But I really, really don't, and I know I'm not an architect, I'm only a nurse, but I don't think we need more than 5 with expertise there to be there. And I think absolutely agreed that admin has to be part of this.
Without a doubt.
Admin must be part of this. It's a town project. It's not a committee's project, not yours, not mine, not anybody's. It belongs with the council to be in charge and admin people to be the ones that are going to be footing the bill.
Yep.
So that's my 2 cents.
So if we have 5 members with 2 alternates and we identify the minimum for representation from the groups that need to be involved, I think it's a semi-compromise.
I think so, yeah. I was going to say, it's sounding like, we go with 5, have 2 alternates, and then have the additional 3 administrative folks. I think that would produce good results.
Yeah, but like I said, I would suggest that we identify such that the Halliwell committee had, not the Halliwell committee, the multi-generational facility committee, identify the groups so that we have, it's mandatory, so that the groups involved, such as the senior committee, or like Ms. Lilly said, we should have someone involved from their group as well, and identify them so that they're not left out.
Sure. So as far as my notes go right now,
So far.
we have 5 voting members, 2 alternates, 3 admin. I'm also going to add into that, of those 7 voting and alternate members,
We didn't say 7.
we have representation from Parks and Rec, and then also representation from the Senior Citizen Advisory Group, at a minimum. I know the Halliwell Review Committee has a planning board member, myself, but if we have a department with planning, I don't think we need to worry about having a member from the planning board, because we'll have administrative input at that, from that perspective.
Yeah, you did.
It's not 7 voting members, though.
Well, of that 7 that would be appointed, would be a representative from Parks and Rec, a Senior Citizen Advisory Committee.
Yeah, but I thought you had said,
Yeah.
oh, you mean of that 7?
Yep, 5 voting members, 2 alternates, and of that 7,
I believe it should be of that 5.
of that 5. Okay,
Not of that
5,
7.
not out of the
no,
7.
that's fine.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute, Ray. What did you say?
It's okay.
Oh, that's right. You represent Parks and Rec. Yeah. I'm
Gonna have to get a longer one.
Here, you want?
Concerning anything related to Parks and Recreation Commission, I'm on the commission.
That's
I
right.
represent Parks and Recreation in this town.
That's right, Ray.
As the Public Works Director, I oversee the Parks and Recreation Division. So any concerns, I go to the monthly meetings, any concerns that pertain to Parks and Recreation in this town, and certainly to anything in this property, has to really go through me. I would be the representative giving that information, once I receive it from the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have to free up a voice in
Another
Parks and
voice, right.
Recreation for that.
I'm sorry, Ray, and I should know that, shouldn't I?
Yeah, we all should.
Especially, no,
I just
I
wanted to remind
We all should.
Nope,
I
that's,
should all know it because I hired them.
Miss Lilly, what was that, the group that you were talking
Parks and
about?
Rec. Yeah. And
Ann, what
She's
was that
Parks and
group you
Rec.
were making sure you wanted on there?
Parks and Rec.
It was Parks and Rec.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
it's
sorry.
Parks and
I
Rec is on
misunderstood.
there. I'm sorry, Ray, my fault. I should know.
So it looks like, can anybody think of any other groups beside the senior center that should be noted as having a member on the committee?
Can I just make a point? Because if you're going to do 5 voting members, 2 alternates, that's 7 people, right? You have 5 on yours, there's 4 here, that's 9 people. So already, you're already picking and choosing, and I'm sure it's going to be more of the Halliwell than this committee. So I don't really think we're already on a fair level here.
But aren't we
because-
opening this up to, like, doesn't everyone have to reapply? Or we're not just
Yeah, I'm
merging the
sure we
two
have to
committees, right?
Right, but I would think that anyone who wants to reapply already
Okay,
has
so-
the knowledge
so I
and
th-
stuff.
I
So
think-
now we're going to start, wait, I'm sorry,
Yep.
1 second. So now we're going to start telling people from each committee that they can't be on it. So now and then out of the 7, we're saying there's specific things that need to be met.
Okay. So then that would be great to explain. I'm glad you're here, because we're also presented these 2 drafts with markups that have outlined that the Halliwell Multi-Generational Building Committee shall consist of 8 members, 5 voting members who shall be residents of the town of North Smithfield and who shall be appointed by the town council, 1 of which shall be a sitting council member, and 3 professional staff members of the town of North Smithfield who shall serve in advisory capacity to the HMBC. Said professional staff members include Director of Public Works or their designee, the town planner or their designee, or building official or their designee. So I think that's where our confusion is coming from now.
And I have
What-
that right here, so I read that, but what
Okay.
I'm saying, if you're going to, of those 5 people, if you're going to start saying specifics that they need to be with certain groups or committees, you're taking people, you're knocking people off who have brought it to this point. So if anyone who wanted to move forward with this committee, now people are being knocked off.
So then we go to 9, then we go to a 9-member board, which we just discussed that was too many. So we
So
said.
would you be happy losing all your committee and like only one of yours and one of this one?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
That's why I had originally said that I'd like to see a 9-member board, but then the others in this room said, no, that's too much. Some folks said it should be 5. So we compromised and went with 7. So if the feeling is that the 4 members on your board and the 5 members on my board are going to continue on, then yes, we should make that 9. 9 voting members. But we just had an entire discussion of that was too many.
Yeah.
I
So-
heard that, I heard the whole thing. So it was 7 members, 5 voting, 2 alternate. But the point is now you're adding stipulations of what committees should be
So then
appointed.
so then if that's the case, then we
So-
shouldn't.
So
If we're going to have the members from the town, Public Works, Planning, Building Official, and we have the multi-generational, which includes younger ages to seniors, and then you have the Halliwell Building Committee, I mean, why do we have to have someone from the Senior Advisory? That's pretty much what we have here. We have a couple of members from the Senior Advisory Committee. We have people for the Multi-Generational Committee, all in one. So
I don't disagree.
So
Because honestly, President Alves, I thought that the intent of this meeting was to find common ground, collaborate with both groups, and then we're combining both groups. But then when we're presented with resolutions that say we're eliminating 4 members somewhere between this board and that board, then can you understand my frustration and my confusion?
Well, I think maybe I have to take a moment, because this is a more complex issue, because this committee that we're talking about is multifaceted, has multi-purposes. The design part, to finalize, requires the most interchange and the most interaction between the various members of the community. But then as you transition to the construction side, it requires far fewer people to administrate, because the drawings are there, the contract is there, and it becomes more of a defined project. So we're talking about 2 phases. The first phase, you still want to reach out to as much input as you can from the community so that what we build or what is built is representative. So it's kind of odd that we're structuring something that's going to serve 2 very important purposes. One is heavy on the design, and then transition to building. And do we want to carry 9, if it is 9, into the building phase, or do we want to split it in half? I don't, that, it might be something to think about.
I wonder if we not designate, if we don't say who's on there specifically, and let it be 5 people, and then when people apply, judge their qualifications. I would put a resume together of my background, and if it's found worthy, then it's found worthy. If it's not, I take no ill will, because maybe there's somebody out there who is more qualified than myself. So everyone else should be able to feel comfortable to stand up and say that as well. So maybe we put it before the town council, and maybe we'll get more people. If Ann wants to apply and other people want to apply, then that's good. That's good for the town, because I think there's been an absence of volunteerism. So if this new board sparks new interest from us as well as other people, then let my qualifications stand next to somebody else's and let them be judged. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
So I'm the one that kind of brought this up, right, to make sure that the seniors are represented. I see both sides. Are you okay with the seniors not having a specific designated spot on there saying that you have to have a senior on the board?
Well, I think when you're looking at the design of things, you might want to know what the seniors want or need.
That
I've
was
met
my
with you
only
before,
concern.
yeah.
Well, also, there is public forum and there's
Yeah.
public comment,
Yeah.
so that can always be a part of it as well.
That gets dicey.
So
Yeah, I think
that's-
there's a distinction. Again, I'll go back and in concert. There is going to be, no matter who sits up here, there's going to be no exclusion.
Council sits up
We're
there.
beyond excluding people. It's just not going to happen, or interests. And nothing that the 5 people who will eventually sit here, or 7, they're not voting on anything. They're sending it up the chain of command, and then the council. And if for some reason somebody felt aggrieved or that they weren't heard, the council will know about it and send it back and say, do your job. So I don't think there's ever going to be a reason to think that any party that has a vested interest in the project will be excluded. So you have to be mindful, and that leans us more towards the 5 than the 9 and the 7.
5, then I think we go back to 5 plus 2
Without stipulations.
without stipulations.
I think so.
And I think we have to remember that the council will be appointing, that's
And
what they do.
the 2 alternates will be structured just like on the zoning board and the planning board. If a voting member is not present, then you will have that voice, and you always have voice, but you'd have vote. A solicitor can work that out, but it's standard fare. And then that keeps the continuity, so that if that alternate sits for the first motion that was continued, then that person will vote on the next one because they were part of the conversation. But legal can figure that all out if that's the choice that is made.
Do we need to, a motion or to recommendation, or?
What I was
This is just for
what I was
talking.
hoping for at the end of tonight's meeting, I know we have 3 of the 5 sitting council members, but I'm hoping that on Tuesday night,
can't
when
do
the
that.
council votes on said resolution, that they'll be able to hear our recommendations. So typically how Halliwell Review Committee has done this is, if there's something that we would like the council to recognize, we make a motion in this instance, we'd say we make a motion to recognize 5 voting members with 2 alternates and 3 administrative staff, and make that as a recommendation. We vote on it, and then I report that back as the representative of Halliwell back to the council. But, I mean.
Sounds
if-
like we got to do it twice, though, so I'll
Yes,
start it
we
off.
do.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we recommend to the town council that we have 5 members plus 2 alternates, plus the staff
5 voting
recommended,
members.
5 voting members, plus 2 alternates, plus the 3 administrative style professional staff as noted in the draft resolution. And that's my notion.
Okay. Have a second, John?
Second, I mean,
No, second.
it's
No,
a
they have to
joint
second.
meeting, they have to
Yeah.
do it?
They have to
Okay.
second.
Well, I can second it. I can second it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make our
Can we
own
do
too.
let's do a roll call. Joanne,
I know, it's silly, but I want to.
we're voting. No. Okay. Kim?
Can I just have clarification? Is there going to be a council member part of that 5, or no?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Amend it, yeah. Muriel? Yes. Yes, okay. Motion carries. Say it
I'll
again.
make the same motion Josh made.
5,
Do I have a second?
that's 2.
Okay, we have the motion.
Town council.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right, I didn't hear you. No, it's all good.
there's still people can be part of this though, right? I mean, we have always encouraged audience or participation. Like, I definitely don't have any building experience, other than my own. And I would be more than happy to just step down and be part of whatever comes up that you may need. Like, I don't want to go against somebody, or if somebody feels like that you're just saving a spot, that isn't necessary. I have the ability to do the Parks and Rec and to join this at some point, and there's going to be finance people, and there's going to be all kinds of other things that are involved here that I would be more than happy to jump on. I don't need to be please don't use numbers where it's, I'm getting confused. I get anxious and I get confused and I get stumbly, sorry. But do you understand what I'm saying? There doesn't need to be, I would definitely be willing to step down if it makes it easier and be.
All our terms expired, so we're all.
Oh, okay.
We're all
Okay.
stepped down already, so. If I could bring up just one other issue related to terms, where in the resolution that the members shall be coterminous with the town council, I would prefer to see a staggered term. Looking at other standing building committees, particularly in Massachusetts, they're all staggered. I think it brings a measure of consistency and retain some institutional knowledge, where if you can have members, maybe 3 of those members are appointed to a 3-year term, and others are appointed to a 2-year term, and after the first 3-year term, those members that were 3 years now bump down to 2, so everyone is staggered. So if somebody were to step away, or if for some reason an entirely new council were to come in and completely clean out the building committee before its job was done, then it would be a shame that something like that would happen. So just something to consider is, instead of coterminous, having staggered terms for all members.
Anybody have thoughts on that?
Well, I mean,
Silence.
there's validity to what you said, but it seems as though I don't assume that if a council member who nominated you, for example, didn't get reelected, it doesn't mean by definition that you won't be reappointed, right?
Right.
So,
But the new council would have the
Appointed,
ability to appoint all 5 people after 2 years.
there's merit to it. I mean,
So,
I don't disagree.
If for whatever reason, you never want to think it will happen, but just for the sake of preserving the work has been done before, that has come before, then having some members that have served and will be retained is, I think, helpful. Because who knows how long this could go? Could it go 2 years? Could it go 3 years? Could it go 5 years?
So again, going back, this isn't the first time we formed a building committee in town.
Yeah.
How has it worked in the past, and was there any issues with it?
Usually they went on to the next council.
Well, didn't the MBRTF have an indefinite term until the project was completed? So you could put that in here, that this building committee has.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, what had happened when I was sitting here, if the person was doing a good job, we appointed them again. Paulette, would you? That's what we did. If somebody was on that building committee, I keep going back to the school, they was doing a great job, do it again, with the next council.
Yeah, I honestly think for a council to come in here, even if it's 5 new people, and for them to clear out a building committee with all new members.
Stupid.
would be silly.
In the world of politics, there's
sillier
lots
things
of
have
stupid,
happened.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's risk management is what it is.
Well, they've quit, but yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take much to just define their terms, but
Sure.
that's,
Right, I really don't care.
But for good reason, right? So, I'm asking. Oh, okay. Gotcha. So it's sort of protecting,
Yeah.
I'm more asking for clarification than judgment, because I'm not familiar with the subject. But if it protects them, protects the committee by having a 3 and a 2.
Well, also, but be mindful, it would be more of an issue if said committee was going to make decisions of impact. They're not.
No,
They're pushing it up the ladder. So, and the wording has excruciatingly specific as
Yep.
to how and
Yep.
what this committee does.
Yeah.
So there is no responsibility on the shoulders of said committee because it's all been pushed to the council. So members should have no fear.
As it should.
And if you can't speak freely, then there was something wrong in the first place. So I mean, I don't think if this committee were to be voting, then it's a valid issue, I think. But because it's just advisory, I don't think there's any risk.
Agree.
All right. Any other,
Are we moving on, or are we staying with this?
if you got a question on section 1, we can still.
No, I'm sorry, it's section.
Well, okay, we can address that. Any further comment on section 1 from your group over there? Okay. Do we want to move on to section 2 when it comes to duties of the committee?
I was just curious, before I forget, on section 1, you got the note about notifying the council if said committee has nothing relevant to discuss, that they don't have to meet per the schedule.
Yeah.
Is that something that needs to be voted on?
How would, Mr. Najarian, how would you prefer, or recommend that be worded then? Just for clarification.
Well, unless you put a comma, unless authorized by unless a delay is approved by the town council or postponement. Because to have it statutory that the committee must meet no matter
Well-
seems to be overbearing.
There have been instances where our committee hasn't had anything on an agenda, and I had gone to the previous council meeting and said, and basically asked permission, and I said, hey, we're not going to have anything to discuss this month. Just letting you know, is it okay that we skip? And we just get a resounding nod. If that's acceptable to the council.
I mean, that's fine, I just didn't know how specific they want this to be.
Kim, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, we really want this project to move forward, so I can't imagine that we would be
Right.
going a month without a meeting. I think that's why that's in there, because we really want to keep this moving.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have the freedom to not have a meeting, I just think that would be a little ridiculous, because we really need to move forward, so.
Yeah. I know when we were working on the master plan, we were meeting twice a month and moving that forward, so.
One thought, in relation to what it's saying about finding sources through public and private grants, donations, as referred to the town council and town administrator for considering an action by the town. What if you go back to funding sources that are through the YMCA or something, if that's saying that it's by the town, what if they're the ones that are seeking that funding? Does that matter, the language?
We have a grant writer now, don't we? Or don't we?
In the interim right now, I think.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But I was talking about like, just if at one time we had discussed it with the YMCA, and then the YMCA had said, oh, well, we have all these funding sources, so if they had those funding sources and they were able to bring it to us, it wouldn't be by the town that was doing it. Does that make sense? I'm just talking about the language there.
So the language would be that if the committee found a source, then obviously it would have to go to the town to pursue any direction
Okay.
with that, so.
Okay.
One question I had is, the word overseeing was stricken on the blue draft. I don't understand why that was removed. Isn't that in fact what the committee will do, oversee? It's the first sentence of section 2.
Yeah, well, they changed it to advising the town council. So the committee's advising the town council on issues related to, rather than overseeing, so they replaced it.
No, I saw that, but
Yeah,
I think overseeing is a more appropriate definition of what said committee is supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be the eyes and the ears of
Yeah,
everyone.
it's kind of both, right? So they're overseeing and advising.
Yeah, I mean, I just was curious why the word overseeing was eliminated, that's all.
Yeah, because it would seem, once, say the building's under construction, I would expect somebody from this new committee would be attending construction meetings to oversee what's going on. So unless,
Just texted you.
unless there's another counselor that would be going to partake in the administrative staff going to the construction meetings.
Well, maybe,
But they're also a part of this new group that's being formed, so,
maybe what was being mentioned here is because it's an advisory committee, and I would assume once we get to the construction phase, we would probably either have a manager, a building manager, or a construction manager overseeing it, since we already do have, already engaged with a company now to bring us to that point. I'm sure once we go there, we would probably bring an OPM or someone at that point. Maybe that's where it's going.
are you talking about having BH&A be our on-site representative?
Well, until we got to the building point, then we would probably bring on,
An OPM?
yeah, I would think, right?
Yeah, that would be sufficient. I mean, I've been part of projects where members from sitting building committees participate in the construction meetings. They show up, they hear, they listen, and they're one of the representatives that then will come back to the group at large and report back, okay, these have been the construction activities, and the OPM would be at those same meetings and report back as well. So,
Well, there seems to be a pattern here. If you, the same section, if you go to the other page on the bullet items, they also, the phrase or the sentence oversight of construction and completion was also deleted. It just seems as though there's great effort to confine the
I would,
responsibilities of said committee to purely and simply oversight, which is a very broad and kind of generic word. I don't quite understand how a committee would go through the pains of evolving and developing the design, soliciting the construction bids, reviewing the construction bids, making recommendations, and then have no participation in the oversight of the construction, whether it be this construction manager who would be hired reporting to the committee first, and then to the council always, but instead of going through all the minutia with the council on matters that are consequential but not significant, I would have thought that that's what this committee would then do, is meet with that representative on a weekly, daily, whichever, however, whatever frequency is needed, and then combined effort go to the council. So it just concerns us a little bit. It seems clear that there seems to be an effort to just completely take this committee out of anything to do with the actual construction, which seems a bit overreaching, but just my opinion.
so I mean, we can very easily make a recommendation that be not stricken, and that be part of the duties of this new committee that's being formed.
Well, I mean, it seems counterintuitive that we would not have said responsibility.
Because I would hope that the committee would still be, or the committee would still be going to the council to say, here's our recommendations, we need this vote on a change of scope in the contract. And we make this recommendation because we have, granted, we're not working within existing buildings now, so that's a good thing. And unforeseen conditions is now greatly lessened. But there would be the knowledge and the ability to identify by this new committee, okay, this is going to be an issue, and we need to bring this in front of the council for a formal action item. So I agree with Mr. Najarian that there is some oversight that's going to be had by the committee. And it's not that I am an untrusting individual with an OPM and a construction manager, but I would prefer to have my eyes on things when we're talking construction and getting things built, just because that's my trade, that's my knowledge. And I want to make sure that You know, if I am the chairperson of this committee, as I have in the past, I want to make sure I'm representing and presenting things to the council appropriately, and I want to make sure I have my eyes on it. So because I want to understand it, so then that way I can explain to the council what's going on.
Well, in addition, then the very next bullet, it ends with the two words, development process. If you're going to be consistent, that should say throughout the development and construction process. Because if you read that to the letter, this committee's responsibility stops after the development process, and that again, we were using intermittently mixing in the word construction, design, and development. Then we pull it out when we seem to not like it. That, in my opinion, if that doesn't also include construction, then it goes back to the first item that I mentioned, which was oversight. It doesn't flow. It doesn't work.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Mr. Punchak.
So how do we move this forward? It seems like there's definitely a lot of concerns about semantics.
Yep.
And do I need this?
Yeah, for the people at home.
I'm gonna guess that that resolution was a cut and paste from the MBR TF resolution, because I saw that a month ago or whenever it first started, and it talked about design build. Now, to me, the first question is this going to be a design build project?
I have that same note.
So, if it's design build versus design bid build, it's a semantics thing. So at next week's meeting, if we want to move something, at next week's town council meeting, if we want to move something forward, what is the best way to get us to be able to move something forward?
So my understanding of this process, and President Alves can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm only just one person and being requested to have this joint meeting, is that my understanding was that we were going to have this meeting, have some collaboration between these two groups, report back to the council on our collaborative efforts, and then however this resolution has been amended, that would be taken up and discussed amongst the 5 council members and then voted on at next week's council meeting. I don't know if that was your intent and your plan, but that was my understanding of this process tonight.
Just because it's not a joint meeting between the town council and the other committees, I don't think we should be having open conversation between 3 council members and 2 committees, so I'd rather kind of keep that to a minimum. So anything that any other council member asks, I would rather not have any answer to that, because I don't want to be in the middle of an open meeting.
Okay. So then I guess your question will be answered on Tuesday night. But you have my understanding of what the process was going to be tonight.
Well,
Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's one opinion of 10 here.
I mean, there's not it's just 2 minor notes. I mean, we either make a motion if this committee agrees, or we don't. I just noted them because that's what we were asked to do, read the draft and comment.
Yep.
So.
Can I just ask a question? So if this is an advisory committee, right? So I just kind of want to know, like, where the advisory part ends and where, like, actual, like, this oversight and construction, completion, and development process. Like, if it's an advisory committee, should you really be in with the construction at that day? Like, say you happen to go in, should you really be that far into it as a committee if we're only an advisory committee? Like, we should be having meetings and always be on top of what's happening and be advised and stuff, but. And
When you
maybe-
say
and-
we, do you mean town council, or do you
No,
mean
I'm
the
meaning
new building
the
committee?
committees. So, and maybe I'm looking at this wrong because I don't know what was thought when this was taken out, but I'm thinking oversight, construction, and completion is above an advisory committee's purpose.
But the very title says building.
I know, but at this point, we're bringing it out to other companies or other individuals because now we're at building, we're past that point. So I'm asking the question. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm asking the question. Where does the advisory part of the committee end, and then going to actually be overseeing the completion of a construction project.
Well, I think, no, it's a very good, because it's a complex scenario here. This committee, when it's formed, advises up to the point where the first excavator starts digging. And then either the council modifies this resolution or this motion, if it needs to. But that's when the transition would occur from advisory, because unless the town is going to staff themselves with enough professionals to oversee construction, then essentially this committee would just, serves no purpose anymore. One would assume that since you have all this work going in, that you'd then want the same people to oversee in conjunction with members of the administration. So I think, yeah, maybe it's a combination of both of those, where this committee serves as advisory to the point that, again, the first bucket goes into the ground, and then it transitions into construction in an advisory capacity.
Can I ask, just, and this is a general question to everybody, how is the MBRTF situated? Because I know previously, when this building was under construction, members of the MBRTF took part in construction meetings over at the old town hall. The contractor was there, the OPM was there, and there were 3 or 4 members of the old MBRTF. And they were actively involved in reviewing those construction meetings and going through payment applications and reviewing potential change orders that they would then recommend to the town council. So do we need to start looking at the MBRTF resolution and start including some of that language if this committee is to become a true building committee? Because if we're going to look at historics, then we should be looking at the MBRTF resolution as well, and including those similar tasks to this committee, because the MBRTF has gone through design, they've gone through bid documents, they've gone through construction. Whether it was the town council acting as the MBRTF or the MBRTF previously, they have gone through all of those phases. So I'm wondering if anybody, while crafting this new resolution, has taken any of those documents from the MBRTF and used that as a guidance, rather than us discussing what we should and shouldn't be doing as an advisory board. Is the MBRTF truly an advisory board? Because I know Mr. Vadney would stand up here and would make recommendations to the town council that then the council would then vote on. So it would be this committee, in my eyes, would be no different than the MBRTF at that point.
I just asked a question, that's all. So I don't know.
Oh, and I guess I'm asking a question with another question. Why are we already have a building committee, so why are we reinventing the wheel?
But you already went through the whole process with the building, just with BH&A, and
We went through a
got to
master
that
plan
point,
process. We didn't
right?
go through a design, we didn't develop any bid documents to date. So, when Tecton was here, they went through a schematic design effort. It was cost estimated. The whole thing happened, decided not to go forward with it. That's now in the past. But now we have another architect, they're putting together bid documents, and we're actively in construction over at the police station. And the MBRTF is overseeing that. I'm not trying to disagree with anything that's being said tonight. I'm just trying to make a point that if we're forming 2 building committees, the language that's in both in the tasks should be consistent with both committees. That's all I'm stating tonight. And if nobody has the MBRTF resolution to review tonight, then I think that should be something that the council should have in front of them on Tuesday night, so that they can compare and contrast the differences and understand, okay, well, I would hope the council, as the acting MBRTF, would be fully aware of what their roles and responsibilities are, and then we can have the discussion that way.
Ray, put your thinking cap back to building the middle school. No, when we did the middle school, we had a building committee. But didn't we have somebody else from that watched over everything, the actual digging and building and putting up the bricks and mortar and everything?
I was not part of that, but I believe
Oh.
Gilbane was the one that.
Gilbane, yes, yeah,
They're the ones that.
yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how active the building committee, were you around then, Jeff? Yeah,
I've been here for quite a while.
You have?
So,
and you're so young.
I know, I look so young too.
No, but I
with-
wondered,
With Gilbane though,
yeah,
they were the folks that built the building.
yeah,
How, they're not going to recommend to pay their own payment application.
right,
How do, because you got, for the MBRTF, you're going to get a payment application. They're going to recommend payment to the contractor.
sure,
So without oversight,
yeah. Well,
or an OPM to advise
yeah,
us.
we did have oversight. That's where I was going. That's
Okay.
where I was going with this.
Okay.
Because, I was president of the council at the time, and we had a town council liaison, Ed Yazbek, who was excellent. And even when the council changed, we reappointed him again. And we had a building committee, and they worked very closely with the council. They brought all the decisions and everything to the council, and we had special meetings, so that they could get their work done quickly. But there was a person that was overseeing the actual, scooping up the dirt and stuff.
We would expect, or
yeah.
I would expect that there's an owner's project
Yeah.
manager that the
Yeah.
town brings on.
So, I
to-
mean,
to-
I don't
to
know if
supplement
that
that.
helps, because
Yeah.
I'm not, as I said, I'm not an architect, but I remember it went along very smoothly.
Yep.
And the council was informed a lot.
Yeah. And-
Weekly, we were informed of how it was going on.
Right.
Yeah.
And my understanding right now that there's an RFP out for the MBRTF to have an owner's project manager to come on board. And I would expect that, once this new committee gets formed and going, that OPM could assist in managing that project, between looking at budgets, managing the architect, managing the contractor, managing the bid documents that go out. I would fully expect an OPM to be working hand in hand with this new committee.
Well, go to item B, or B, section 2B. Again, it's, the logic seems to be, I'm missing it there. It says, all contracts, change orders, shall be approved by the council following a written recommendation by HMBC. Now, if HMBC is not involved in the oversight of the construction in any way, shape, or form, they have no basis by which to comment on a proposed change order. So it's as though trying too hard to keep this committee in a very narrow lane and not drift left and right. So it doesn't seem to make any sense that if you have never been to the construction site and you have and unless you're in construction, you're going to give a recommendation on a change order when you've never been there because you have no responsibility to be there. So this doesn't flow properly, in my opinion.
So from the sounds of it, 30,000 view from the sky, that what we've just been discussing for the past 15, 20 minutes, is that really the oversight of construction and completion should not be stricken.
Correct. All of this would be, make much more sense if those two sentences were modified. I mean, I'll be happy to make a motion if you'd like.
You are more than welcome to make a
Okay.
motion.
Let's make sure we have everything. Make a motion to modify the draft with the blue lettering, the blue revisions, section 2A, to reinstate the word overseeing. And then further down, reinstate the phrase oversight of construction and completion. And then the following, the bullet item after that, the last sentence, as necessary throughout the insert construction and development process. That would be the motion.
Can you just state those line numbers?
Line item 50.
Was section 2A, the first sentence.
Line 50.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking there.
Nope,
I'm
you're
sorry.
good.
And what else did you need?
Line 50 was the first edit.
Yeah, now I see it. Yeah.
Line 68 was the next edit for do not strike. And then line 71, throughout the construction and development process, was the amended version.
Correct.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Madam Chair, did your committee feel the need to make any motions on that one? Okay. All right. Any other further discussion on section 2?
Well, for chair, did you want to make a motion asking the council to look at the resolution for the other committee and see if it can't be merged into, or if in your opinion, that
Yeah.
resolution is much more applicable to the overall intent of this committee?
All right. I'll make a motion that we recommend to the town council that they review the MBRTF resolution in comparison to this presented resolution.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Any further discussion on section 2 of this resolution from your group? Okay. Move along to section 3. That's pretty straightforward. Just dealing with chairpersons, secretary, vice chair, corresponding with Rhode Island general laws. Anything with section 4, consultant interaction. Before we get there, can I ask where this marked up blue version came from? It was sitting here on the table. We've been talking about it and reviewing it. Can I ask who authored that resolution? So that,
I don't know which one you're looking at, but there's one that came from the administration.
okay, we have one that's marked as draft, the Halliwell Multi-Generational Building Committee. I would just like to know where, because I know both committees received an email from the town clerk that had one version, which had listed
Yeah.
previously 9 members.
So you don't need to go on any further. Ted. So that initial draft was circulated to a number of people, including the administration, the town administrator. And this draft that you have here are the comments incorporated into that initial draft that are coming from the town administrator or the administration. So
Okay.
this is the administration's suggested amendments to
Gotcha.
the initial draft.
All right, thank you for that
The
clarification.
ownership is of the administration, not of the council president, or not of anyone who had done the original draft.
Nope, that's fine.
Okay.
I just wanted clarification for
I,
where that
and
came from.
while I'm here, I have one question. So-
Yes.
And you gentlemen are definitely professionals in this field. Have you ever had anyone who is not associated with the business building a building supervising the building? I mean, there are liability issues associated with a volunteer actually even going on a construction site.
I've had,
If they're injured or hurt and they're representing the town and they don't have liability insurance, then the town is responsible for the injuries to that individual.
Yep.
If they're making, hold on, if they're making decisions related to finances or construction, and there are errors and omissions in the decisions that that this committee may be making, there's liability associated with that. So wanting to supervise or have a responsibility for making decisions on site or with regard to contracts or contracting, there's a liability associated with that. And unless the town is going to indemnify you, the group, not you individually, and include you in their liability insurance, you probably don't want to be doing those things. Well, the town doesn't want you to be doing those things. So I think the town needs to be careful in who they empower and what authority they give. And I think that's some of the reason why there are some of those changes in here.
Okay.
To be an advisory committee to the council. The council does have liability insurance. They're elected officials. Any decisions they make will be covered under the umbrella of the insurance of the town.
Sure.
Just for your understanding.
No, I want to address a few things that you've brought up. I've been the architect of record in building committees where committee members, whether in the architecture field, construction field, or other fields, have gone to site to see what was going on. I've had chair people who have no background in those fields attending construction meetings and walking the site with the architect, with the OPM to understand what's going on. And I would not expect that this new committee would be, or any of those committee members would be making directives on site at a construction meeting. They would not have that authority because they would have to come back to the council and ask for them to direct the architect to then direct the contractor. So things like that, directions on site, me personally, I keep my mouth shut whenever I'm walking a construction site. That's just my practice because things are always misinterpreted one way or the other. But, so I have been in those instances in the past. But as a liability, yes, completely agree with understanding that perspective.
Can Section 4, does anybody understand that? What does that mean? I'm not trying to be cute, but I don't understand exactly what it means.
From like you said, looking down from above, I'm thinking it is preventing anyone from the committee from contacting any consultants, subcontractors, contractors, anybody outside a meeting. So it's preventing the committee from making any phone calls or contacts, emails, anything of those sorts with anyone on the construction team other than the 4 examples listed there. That's.
I get that, but it's profoundly ambiguous. I mean, then just say it. You shouldn't have to infer what it means. If it's going to be so categoric and so rigid, then write it out and say exactly, you shall not do this. I understood it. I was being a little bit when I said it, but then be specific. That there's a great deal of ambiguity in that presentation, and if it's so categoric, then state it. So that's all. I mean, I don't think that's clearly defined. You can infer, but you shouldn't have to guess at what it means. So maybe they can clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, it seems like they took the more positive approach rather than the do not do this. It's here's what you are recommended to do.
Or allowed.
Or allowed,
Right.
yeah. So just staying positive.
So it's
No, I understand.
for short of it, none of the committee members should be emailing the architect directly. None of them should be emailing the OPM directly. They should be going through, if Ray's on the board, the committee member should email Ray, Mark, Scott, whoever the administrative staff is, and say, hey, can you ask the architect this question? Hey, can you ask the OPM with this question? I think that pretty standard practice.
Yeah, I just wish it was explained a little bit better so it just
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion on section 4 for you folks? Okay. Section 5 and section 6 are pretty well straightforward. I believe my only final comment would be that the naming of the group, and this is, we're not just dealing with a building, we're dealing with an entire 40-acre property. So I would just make a recommendation that we call it the Halliwell Multi-Generational Facility Committee or Property Committee, just because it's so much more than just a building. Because, yeah, but we also have $1 million.
It's a building committee.
No, we also have $1 million grant to do site work for passive recreation throughout the entirety of the property. So
Around the building.
I know it's just semantics, but
Well,
it's,
I think that part of it falls under the administration, not a building committee.
Yeah.
so then are we gonna have two groups? One group overseeing the $4 million grant and another group overseeing the $1 million grant? Is that the intent? Are we gonna have, the administration developing the $1 million grant plans and expectations, and this one just doing the building? It's just a question that I'm throwing out there. What's the expectation of this group? Are we just gonna focus solely on the building, or are we looking at the property as a whole? Because the Halliwell Review Committee did a master plan of the property as a whole. So, it's a question that can be asked at the council meeting. It can be discussed amongst the council, but it's going to be more than what this town has currently is more than just a $4 million grant for building. We also have the $1 million grant in site.
I understand that, Jeff.
So.
Yeah. I do. I just would like to get this going, or we'll never get it done.
Oh, I would have loved to get this going a year and a half ago.
Show on the road.
I am in
Maybe you need
complete
to-
agreement with
Maybe you
that.
need to make a motion to get the council to clarify, because that was an integral part of the Halliwell design up to this point. And if, maybe it's good to get them to clarify exactly what their intent is,
Yeah.
as it relates to the site.
Because it does just list in the second whereas, line number 16, it lists the $4 million grant, but there's no listing of the $1 million grant.
That's a reasonable question to ask for clarity.
Sure.
So I'm going to make a recommendation that the council determines who's overseeing the $1 million grant for the passive recreation.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right. Are there any other comments this evening? Mr. Ogier?
Oh, that's right, he's not on the committee anymore.
So take 2 seconds. Since it sounds like there's a lot of discussion in that area, why not just call it the Halliwell Complex Review Committee? They could be left for interpretation. You can focus on the grounds. Still got a building down there. It doesn't derail anything. But I think the last name suggestion was a little mouthful, so just keep it short. That's it.
Thank you.
Real quick, I'm Jack. Earlier, like way earlier, you mentioned a building committee and a designing committee. Maybe I don't know. Would those be two separate ones? Like, would you be forming an entirely different one for the building committee, or would they be part of the same process?
The intent was that it.
All right. That's all.
Could I just have your last name, too? Thank you. Okay. Again, I'm thrilled that we have an audience tonight. So thank you for being here this evening. Greatly appreciative. I know, we're not used to all this attention. So unless there's other further recommendations or motions that the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee would like to make to the council this evening?
The only recommendation we had made at our last meeting was to disband both of our committees and get a building committee going for the community center. That was our recommendation,
Amen.
and it stands.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then,
So we'd like to adjourn.
would you like to
I'll
close
take a
first?
motion to adjourn.
So moved?
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good. Meeting adjourned.
Look for a motion to adjourn on our end.
I'll motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.